What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the Jets Report. My name is Patrick Siepman, and coming up on today's show, we're going to talk about what ESPN's Benjamin Solak had to say about Garrett Wilson as he predicted he will lead the NFL in receiving yards this upcoming year. So we'll talk about how likely that is and just talk about that Justin Fields, Garrett Wilson connection and why it could be very special this upcoming season. But speaking about number 5, let's type those 5s down below in the comments section. Show Garrett Wilson some love. I think he's one of the most underappreciated, underrated wide receivers in the National Football League. So if you guys want to start today's show by showing number 5 some love, type his jersey number and drop those 5s down below in the comment section. So I think Garrett Wilson is one of those receivers who borderlines that, top 7, top 8 range in the NFL. You got the top 2 dogs, Jefferson, Jamar Chase, and you got like the CD Lambs, the AJ Browns. You have a guy like Malik Neighbors. But I do think that kind of 6, 7, 8 spot is fully up for grabs. And if Garrett Wilson has a monster season next year, he could potentially crack that top 5. But in terms of how he could perform next year is what Solak had to say. As such, I have a nagging suspicion that Wilson will lead the league in receiving yards in 2025. Garrett Wilson is the best wide receiver Justin Fields has played with in his NFL career. Wilson is the wide receiver 1 with the biggest gap in quality between him and his wide receiver 2 in the entire league. Totally agree about that last part, that the difference between, the wide receiver 1 on the New York Jets and the wide receiver 2 is the biggest gap in the NFL. And, I think Garrett Wilson has the talent to do this. Like, Garrett Wilson can go and have a 1,600, 1,700, 1,800 yard season. But again, it is very unlikely. And why I think it's unlikely is because I think this Jets offense will not be built through the pass. It's going to be built through the run, ground and pound game. Now, when they do throw the ball, I expect a heavy percentage of that target share to go to Garrett Wilson. But he's going to need to eclipse at least 1,700 yards to lead the league in receiving. And we'll fly through the last 3 years. Jamar Chase this past season, 1,700 yards. Justin Jefferson, 1,500. Then there was a drop-off to number 3. Brian Thomas in his rookie year had just over 1,200. Then Drake London and Amon-Ra St. Brown. But still, that top number, 1,700 yards. Then you go the year before, Tyreek Hill almost had 1,800 yards. Also with CD Lamb having a monster year of over 1,700 yards as well. But even Amon-Ra contributed 1,500. Puka had 1,400 during his rookie year. And then A.J. Brown over 1,400 as well. So even the crack, the top 5 here, you got to have over 1,450 yards. But even in 2022, this is when Jefferson had that monster season going over 1,800 yards. Tyreek Hill over 1,700. And then our good old friend Devontae Adams having 15. A.J. Brown just under 15. And then Stephon Diggs, when he's back with the Buffalo Bills, had just over 1,400 yards as well. So, listen, he can do it. He's got the talent to do it. But again, I think it's very unlikely because for him to lead the league in receiving, he's going to have to go for over 1,700 yards. Can he do it? It's a possibility. I do like Garrett Wilson in fantasy football this year a whole lot. But in terms of Justin Fields, he has had great connections with receivers in the past in his NFL career, and more specifically, DJ Moore. Now, back in 2023, Fields last year starting with the Chicago Bears, him and DJ Moore had an unreal connection. Actually, shout out producer Dylan. He mentioned the 230-yard performance on Thursday Night Football he had against the Washington Commanders. So he had, a receiver with a great connection going over 1,300 yards, 8 touchdowns that year. And I think that connection he had with DJ Moore, it's going to be heightened with Garrett Wilson because they obviously, were awesome. They're an electric factory when they're playing for Ohio State. I think there's no doubt that this connection will be special, and I do think that really matters. I think it's, when you have a guy who you played with and played some high-level football with, like it's not like Ohio State was just like a middle-of-the-pack Big Ten team. Like they were the main squeeze in college football that year, and they had that connection. It was very special. I remember that game against Clemson and Trevor Lawrence, just the bombs Fields was throwing to Wilson. Hopefully they're able to replicate it this year, but if I had the call where Wilson will land in terms of receiving yards this year, I do think it would be the best of his NFL career, but I think it would only be around 1,300 yards, and they'll probably land him about like 7th, 8th most in the National Football League. But you guys place your bets. Maybe you agree with Benjamin Solak and disagree with me. Over under 1,300 yards for Garrett Wilson. Give me an O for over or give me a U for under. I think it'll be just over this, but I don't know if he'll top that 1,400, 1,500 yard mark. But hey, you guys let me know. O for over, U for under. Now, Solak did mention that, there's a huge gap between wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2 for the New York Jets. Now, I think the Jets are kind of playing this out as a wide receiver 2 by committee where they'll have Corley, maybe an Arian Smith, Tyler Johnson, Josh Reynolds, kind of hop in there game-to-game basis and just whatever is a better matchup for the Jets offense, they'll lean with that guy. But there are still some free agents out there. I think these guys are, bigger names than they are in terms of production out there on the football field, like Keenan Allen, Amari Cooper. Listen, if this was 3 years ago, I'd be pounding the table to sign both those guys. But Cooper has had drop issues. Even Keenan Allen last year had some drop issues. But you also have a guy like Gabe Davis still out there, Nelson Aguilar, DJ Chark. But honestly, all of these guys, I don't really think they move the needle. I don't think the Jets need another wide receiver. I am perfectly fine with them giving these reps to these younger cats instead of just kind of pushing them down the mark. Because let's just say you do go and sign a Keenan Allen. Okay, well, he'll be your wide receiver too. And then that's just harder for guys like Corley and Arian Smith to get just reps, to just get plays out there, which I think if you're thinking bigger picture for this Jets team, getting those guys those reps, especially early on in the season, could pay some big dividends, in the bigger picture of this whole Jets rebuild. But Connor Hughes of SNY had this to say on the Jets signing wide receiver, saying the Jets can certainly make a splash. Receiver is a need opposite of Garrett Wilson, but the Jets don't seem overly inclined to address that spot now. They have veterans, Tyler Johnson and Josh Reynolds, drafted Arian Smith and restructured Alan Lazard's contract. It would be a little surprising if they added a notable name, Amari Cooper, Keenan Allen, there. So, again, they don't need another wide receiver. Even a guy like Alan Lazard, he could step in and kind of be that, veteran guy. And if you told me I don't really see a difference between Lazard and like Amari Cooper, Keenan Allen, I don't know if I would disagree with you. Like all three of those guys are on the tail half of their career. But in terms of having another weapon across from Garrett Wilson, I think they do. I think it's Mason Taylor. And I understand he's a rookie, but we have seen rookie tight ends splash immediately over the last couple of years. Like Brock Bowers last year had a guy like Tucker Kraft for the Bills, like Tucker Kraft for the Packers, Dalton Kincaid for the Bills. Like we have seen these guys, or take Sam Laporta with the Detroit Lions. We have seen these tight ends hit at a higher rate in year one compared to years past. So I understand, like if you just look at the Jets roster on paper, yes, they have a need at that wide receiver 2 spot, but they can kind of do it within the aggregate with a guy like Taylor, with a guy like Corley, Arian Smith, Lazard, Josh Reynolds, Tyler Johnson. Like they have bodies to put in there. So I'm against the Jets adding another wide receiver. Now let's just say they start the season hot. They're 4-2. Maybe you could trade for one at the deadline. But in terms of them signing another wide receiver before the year, I'm cool if they don't. I'm going to put some faith in the guys that they have behind Wilson. But what say you on this one? Should the Jets add another wide receiver? Give me a Y for yes. Give me an N for no. And also make sure you hit that subscribe button on your way out. We're closing in here on 6,500 subscribers. So if you guys have not already, hit that subscribe button today. And we'll see you guys next time. As always, go Jets.